You ever thought you knew somebody, like really knew somebody, only to find out your entire relationship was based on a lie? Well, it happened to me, and I can tell you it does not feel good. I'd been married to my wife for 50 years when I found out the reason we got married, not to mention the last 50 years, was based on a huge lie. I am still in shock, but I want to share my story in the hopes that somebody else might be helped or at least understand what I have gone through and how I'm feeling. My name is Dan, and my wife's name is Nicole. We started dating young in high school. We were best friends first, and then became more than friends around grade 10. We dated all through high school without even breaking up once. That's a pretty big accomplishment at that age. Just in our circle of friends, everybody had dated everybody else, and they were constantly breaking up, getting back together, dating somebody else in the crowd, and then trying it all over again. I mean, it was exhausting just to watch, trying to keep up with who was dating who. Well, me and Nicole, though, we were solid. I think part of it was because we both had such unsteady upbringings and we were both craving stability and comfort. I'd been bounced around foster homes since I was 5. Nicole's dad left the family when she was young, but not before he sexually abused her. Needless to say, we were both clinging to each other like rafts in a stormy sea. At the end of our senior year, Nicole got pregnant. Obviously, I didn't even ask if it was mine, I just assumed. She certainly didn't give me any reason to think that it wasn't mine, but now, looking back, I should have asked. We were planning on getting married anyway. At least, I was planning on asking her to marry me. We just sped up our plans on account of the pregnancy, but other than the timeline, it didn't change things much. We just got married and had a baby a little sooner than we had planned. The only bad thing at the time was that I had just been accepted to the engineering program at our local college. With the baby on the way, though, I couldn't afford school. It was one thing to get student loans for just her and I to live off of, but that was quite another to try and look after a wife and a child while going to school full-time. So instead, I got a construction job that paid big bucks. I'd always been good with my hands anyway, so construction was a natural fit for me, and I liked the money, the hours, and the work. When our son was born, we couldn't have been happier. We bought a small house, nothing special or fancy, but it was ours. For both of us, it felt like it was the first real home that we'd ever known. I'll never forget the day that we brought our son Timmy home from the hospital. Now we felt like our family was complete, and it was also the first time either of us had felt like we had a real family. Life was good. The saying is right, though. The days are long, but the years are short. Time passed and we lived our lives. When Timmy was doing a genetics and DNA unit in science class, part of an assignment was for 2 kids from the class to undergo a DNA test. And then the class was to look at the results, and they talk about how the test was done, what it would reveal. Names were drawn out of a hat, and Timmy was one of those students selected for the test. His teacher had ordered the kits and administered the tests and took the samples he needed in a lab setting at school. It was all really exciting. The DNA test also had a genetics component, and the test could tell you what ethnicities that you had in your blood and if you were genetically predisposed to develop a health condition or disease. So Timmy found out that he was part English and Irish. Well, we knew that, of course, but what we didn't know was that there was some Italian in his blood. It was all really fascinating, and he told us how the tests worked and what they tested for. We didn't really even look at the DNA portion of the tests, at least I didn't. We were more focused on the genetics section. Well, fast forward another 30 years. Timmy was long gone from the house. He moved out right after high school, went to college, and became a successful engineer. I couldn't help but wonder how differently my life would have been had I become an engineer. Would I have an amazing career too, like my son? Would we live in a gigantic house? Would we have been able to pay for Timmy's college and been able to afford having a bigger family, perhaps? We had talked about having more kids, lots of times, but with our small house and single-wage income, we couldn't afford it. Money was tight all the time. just with the three of us, so the thought of adding another mouth to feed into that mix, it always seemed like an irresponsible and almost impossible choice. Well, many years after Timmy left and started a family of his own, I decided it was time to tackle cleaning out that attic. We kept all of our baby stuff, and Tim and his wife were expecting their first baby, so it seemed like a good idea to see what we had that we might be able to pass on. And then I came across that DNA assignment, and to my surprise, the DNA test, it was folded up inside the old science textbook. I don't know what prompted me to unfold it, open it up, and read through the whole thing, but for some reason I did. I remembered the genetics stuff, but when I got to the DNA results, I froze. It couldn't be right. It showed Nicole as the birth mom, of course, but there was no name under the listed father, just some blood type info and other stuff. And I knew that was not my blood type. I was confused as to why my name wouldn't be there like Nicole's was. I was friends with a science professor at the university, so I decided to give him a call. He knew all about this kind of stuff, and he said to bring the test down for him to see. So we met for lunch, and he laughed when he saw the test at how old it was and how differently things were done now. He said it should have my name listed as the father regardless of how old the test was. He asked if the sample that was sent in with the test was with it, and he asked me to check and get it so he could run the test again. DNA never changes, so let's just run it again and find out what's going on. So I returned home, rummaged around some more, and found the sample portion of the assignment. It had been a saliva swab. My friend checked it and said there was still more than enough DNA on the swab to rerun the test. And it amazed me how long this information could stay viable, which explained how DNA could impact cases and trials years later. Well, my friend said that he could run the test and have the results back to me within a couple of days. During the wait, I'd almost forgotten about the test. That's how worried I was, or wasn't worried, I don't know. Anyway, when I got the call to meet for coffee, there was something I just couldn't quite place in my friend's voice. And we sat across from each other at the coffee shop, and he slid an envelope across the table to me. I opened it up, but before I pulled out the paper, Doug put his hand on my arm and he said, "Be prepared, Dan. I want you to be prepared." I didn't know what he meant, so I pulled out the paper and read the listed parents' names. There was Nicole's name at the top, but underneath there was another male's name, and it wasn't mine. I vaguely recognized the name, but I couldn't quite place it. "This must be a mistake," I said. "I mean, it can't be right. Who is this guy?" Doug told me that when it came to DNA tests, there was no margin of error. He said the test is 100% accurate and that it might be time to head home and have a serious chat with my wife. So that's exactly what I did. When I walked in the door, Nicole was sitting at the dining room table, sipping a cup of coffee. Her face lit up when she saw me, which made me doubt what I was about to ask her even more. I sat down across from her. I pushed the envelope across the table so it was right in front of her. She asked what it was, but I didn't answer, so she pulled out the paper and said, "DNA test?" When her eyes read the names, I carefully studied her face. I knew her well, and I knew the second I saw how she looked at me that it was right. I wasn't Tim's biological father. That was a long night, with a lot of talking, yelling, and crying. The next day I packed my things and left the house. I still can't believe that a DNA test revealed my wife of 50 years lied to me. To watch more animated story videos like this, hit that subscribe button and tell us in the comments section what you thought about this story.